Boy, can your guy call it sometimes or what? This entire weekend was a LeBron celebration of LeBron and also a warning, because no one pivots into an answer about something else that then transitions into a compliment about himself. He complimented the Cavs, but then somehow he was in it. He complimented Luka and then said basically he's amazing, and he's like, reminds me of me. That's fine, cool. Like I said before, if you've been the spotlight of basketball for, I don't know, since you were in your mid-teens, it'd be hard to not be a little narcissistic. But as Windhorse writes on ESPN.com, a couple different things happening here. This is a warning. This is the part of the LeBron game where he puts everybody on notice. He did this back in Miami. I remember one time he complained about them not having a full roster. I asked somebody that would know. I was like, why does he care if they're not at the minimum? Like, or why does he care that they're one below the maximum on what they can carry for a roster? And it was like, look, LeBron wants to make sure that ownership is never they're never satisfied. They're never complacent. He always wants to put the pressure on them. I was like, yeah, but don't you think this is a time where it doesn't make any fucking sense? Like, who cares? Who cares who the 15th guy is? And it was like, never want them to settle. And that's why LeBron always liked doing the shorter deals where he'd have a player option, which he actually doesn't have this time around because of the way the rules work on his most recent extension, which he's going to be looking for another extension when it comes to August. So that's another part of this. We talked about his son in the least surprising news in basketball in the last 5 years. By the way, I don't know that much about his son. I don't. I went and looked it up this morning. It's actually crazy because you can't find any of the stats. You can't find his son's stats online because I guess the coach at Sierra Canyon doesn't want that to happen. So LeBron, by the way, if we're trying to figure out the future of him as a player and playing with his son wouldn't be eligible until the 2024 draft. He's a 17-year-old junior. He's 6'3". I think he's 180, 190. He was a 5-star. Now he's a 4-star. And I have no idea how to project a high school kid at this point. But this isn't some certainty. It gets talked about as if it's a certainty, but it isn't. But then again, it could be a certainty if some team was like, all right, LeBron, we'll give you the full max, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever because we're just a boring franchise and we want to end with you in this run and all this stuff. And we'll go ahead and we'll sign you up with your son. I mean, if we had 7 Antetokounmpos in the league, then, I think Bronny Jr. would probably maybe find a way in if it's even remotely passable. But right now, for anyone talking about it as if it's some certainty that he's just a lottery pick or first round pick in 2024, I still think there's some work to do. And the stats, trying to find high school stats, like I said, it was hilarious how bad of a time I had trying to find some of those stats. So this all leads to kind of the Windhorse thing where Windhorse has known LeBron as well as anybody that's covered this sport for the last 2 decades. In the Miami example, the Miami Heat example I used before, apparently LeBron was upset that they didn't use a pick and Westbrook to bring in John Wall, which I think the understanding would be that at least with Wall, we can control the mistakes a little bit more, even though Westbrook is on the Lakers because of one reason only, and that's LeBron, who will divorce himself from this stuff. But as I said last week, like I am willing to like prepare myself for how weird all of this could actually get and how mercenary level it could go with other pieces on the roster, because LeBron doesn't want any picks. He used to get mad when they wouldn't move a lottery pick, for DeAndre Jordan back when he was with the Cavs. And none of that makes any sense. And if you're the Lakers, you're going to be faced with, the real reason we couldn't do anything before the deadline is because you wanted Westbrook on this team. And we went all in with it instead of Buddy Hield and some of the other things that we could have done on the periphery because we added this supposed 3rd star. So I kind of can't wait. Get your popcorn ready. So there was all sorts of weird things that happened there. And actually, this is the part of Kyrie's argument that I actually stood up for him because he was in this trade, Cerruti for Paul George. And then Kyrie's like, wait, this guy wants me out of here. So like, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. And I actually would agree with Kyrie once we had more of that information. But basically, Windhorse writes that LeBron, once he felt like Cleveland wasn't doing enough. And they basically felt like he was floating, right? He was just floating for a while. So LeBron wanted to make all these moves. And the irony of this move with Isaiah Thomas and all the stuff where they moved all these pieces around is they actually hooked the Lakers up to get cap space to do what they ended up doing by grabbing LeBron later on. But as the quoted piece here, it says Gilbert, Altman realized they didn't have a choice. James was an irreplaceable resource. Once he was gone, there'd never be another. So the day before the trade deadline, they got several trades in place. That night, Altman met with James for the game and told them the following day they were trading 4 new players and decided to use their first round pick that year to do so. It was the 7th first rounder they were trading in the 4 seasons James had been back in Cleveland. So that night, LeBron goes out for 37, 10, and 15 assists, buzzer beater, beats the Timberwolves. He topped it off with a move for his personal passive-aggressive Hall of Fame, turning his back on Isaiah Thomas when he charged the court to celebrate. James never wanted the Cavs to trade for Thomas, and he already knew that he was being shipped out the next day. So he hits a game winner. He was mad Isaiah Thomas was on the team in the first place. Turns his back on him, according to this story. And it's like, because man, you're fucking traded anyway. So like I said, I can't wait to see what happens.